Hello, I'm Marc, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and this is a special series during this COVID crisis where we'll be sharing the learnings, best practices, and failures and successes of all the channel leaders throughout the tech industry. So sit back, listen, and enjoy. XMA being quite heavily into the public sector, you know, you must have been pretty stretched at the moment from a sort of service and a capability and delivery point of view. So how have you actually found it yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's been busy. I guess we've kind of gone through that usual government peak that you get as you get through the second half of Feb and into March, and then you've got overlaid in terms of all of that stress that we probably came into the quarter worried about Intel shortages, which were quickly superseded by the Chinese factories were closed because of COVID. And then, of course, the impact in terms of the demand curve for critical services and some of the, I suppose, new government agencies that we've seen popping up, plus the mass migration to working from home. And that's still ongoing, to be honest. I think, if anything, we're starting to see a second phase of working from home. And I suggested to some of the XMA staff this morning that was almost people had put together anything they could to get you going from home, you know, put it on your own desktop, put it on your own laptop. And now they're almost going through this is going to last at least another month. This is going to be May before we're back in an office, probably, if not longer. We better start putting some more permanent solutions in place. So we're almost seeing a second wave of demand at the moment as well. So yeah, a lot of stress on the overall business, a lot of stress on the guys and girls who are still in some of our buildings in terms of working the operations, the config centres, in terms of prepping kit for people, and the logistics guys and girls all working really hard. And as you say, also managing then the field people to do installs, do upgrades, while actually making sure that they're social distancing as well. Yeah, challenging, interesting, challenging, but challenging nonetheless.
Yeah, I was going to say, because you've mentioned there the first wave. Oh damn, I'm going to be working from home. Let's grab whatever kit we can and actually just put it on my Wi-Fi, etc. But then the second bit, having a sort of an agile strategy or an agile workplace strategy in terms of, oh, actually I need security, I need actually bandwidth or whatever it's going to be. How do you think companies are sort of coping with that? Because, for example, a company like mine, I'm in that second stage now. I'm thinking, actually, this isn't going to be working off my, you know, I haven't got a laptop or I haven't got headsets and all that sort of stuff. So how are you thinking your customers are adapting to that sort of second wave of transition?
Yeah, I think there's a huge amount of work going on for all of them. Because, as you say, I think some of the stuff you talked about there, security in particular, I'm not saying that people left it behind and ignored it, but it was less important than having people work. Now, of course, it's becoming more important. And I think also you've got to remember that that people are still trying to run their core infrastructure at the same time. So they've still got all the challenges they've got to run their businesses, but now with people remote. And you know, and even our business, this is the first time that we've had so many staff working remotely. We're probably, I'm guessing, looking at what we've done, there's 350 of us working remotely now, which is challenging. It's got to be challenging because, you know, we've always had remote people, we've always had mobile people. I was jokingly saying I don't think I've ever owned a desktop in the 30 years I've been in the industry. I've always had some sort of mobile device. I'm kind of used to it, but for some people it's really new. And it, even for us, a bit of gearing up to make sure people were ready and that we knew on day one, as we put more and more people into working from home, that it was a challenge and a challenge for our IT guys. And that's ongoing. And of course, you know, with the amount of unscrupulous people out there trying to dig around at the edges of everybody's security, it's a real problem for people. But as I say, there's definitely feels like there's a second wave of work going on at the moment.
Do you think, Andy, that the smaller guys, the smaller sort of partners out there that didn't really have services capabilities, do you think they potentially might be wiped out of their struggle now? Because there's going to be an opportunity now for a lot of companies, maybe some of the bigger players or maybe some of the niche players that are experts in providing those services, not just around work from home, but they can actually eat each other's lunch now. They can actually say, because this would be a time that, as an end user myself, I'd be thinking, I'd be very open to changing if someone could solve my problems, if they can't get supply chains or kits. So do you think some of the sort of smaller guys would potentially get wiped out?
It's a difficult one. We've been talking about it a lot because it's going to be challenging for everybody. And I think, depending on the markets, we've seen increased demand. We've seen demand dropping off. If you've got a print business, guess what? People aren't printing as much. They're not in offices. That's changed. So you've got different people exposed to different circumstances. I would assume that actually customers are seeking advice and deep support from the people they've worked with for a long time. So if you're a proximity type partner who is close to the customers, and for a lot of the smaller partners, you are their IT department, then now's a really good time to show your worth. And I know sourcing kit will be difficult, but the supply chain is coming back on stream. We're very close to the likes of HP, Lenovo, and Apple, and we've certainly seen very encouraging signs. There's some catch up to do in terms of getting boxes in. There's obviously some priority being given to NHS and frontline, which is causing its own little bit of disruption. There's a bit of disruption in terms of air freight and getting things into the UK as priorities taken by medical supplies. But I'd be quite buoyant if I was still in a smaller reseller, that I'd be getting very close to my customers, because they're going to need extra support in terms of how they work. I guess those are going to be challenges. People are exposed to markets that have closed down, and there will be several of those markets.
Yeah. Do you think, and talking about getting close to your customers, do you think the communication style is going to change now? Obviously, we all know that the best way to meet someone is face-to-face in person. You can't beat that. But we all had the capabilities of doing video like we're doing now, and yet we weren't doing it. It was still like the odd phone call, etc., or really defaulting to email. Do you think people will suddenly think, actually, it is easier doing a video call instead of actually driving up from Worcester to St Albans or wherever it is?
It's really odd, because again, I came out of an organisation, SCC, where we didn't rely on video conferencing, but we built good video conferencing capabilities probably 10 years ago. And all our offices were absolutely, because we built out across Europe. We'd recognised quite early that this sort of interaction was important. So we got multiple video conferencing rooms in every location across Europe. So I was kind of, I must admit, used to this, and often, I'd say to suppliers on a Friday afternoon, don't drive down from Manchester. If you go to our Warrington office, somebody will let you in, give you a cup of tea, put you in front of the video screen. Let's connect that way. So I think it's an extension of that. And I think it's been interesting how people are adapting and using the technology. We're a Teams house. We've used Teams a lot. We've found some things we didn't know about Teams amongst the senior management team, but that's probably more age than anything else. And today we've used Teams events to brief, so Lee could brief the whole of the workforce, and that worked really well for us. The feedback's been good. So I think people are adapting. I still, and again, maybe this is an age thing. I don't think you can beat face-to-face contact. I don't think you can beat that office environment and talking things through. But this is a good substitution, and clearly, as more people, and I think it's interesting for businesses, because I think a lot of businesses have always worried about, if you let lots of people work from home, how do you manage them? How do you keep in contact? How do you make sure everything gets done that needs doing? And I think this is kind of an experiment for a lot of people, that actually probably the world isn't all working from home or always working in an office. But there's probably a different mix as we go forward, and as we hopefully exit the current situation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I think I alluded to you when I sent you the message. I couldn't really work out what day of the week it is now, because it's obviously now I seem to be permanently sort of just doing things every day, which I never did before, and I wasn't used to working from home. But now I'm having to sort of juggle it. I've never really had a laptop. I have, but I never used it. I've always used a desktop. And for someone like myself, it really is alien. So another question would be, for people that, not the field sales guys, maybe the internals that aren't used to doing this before, and you haven't really had to manage them, or your managers haven't had to manage them in that way, how have you coped with that as a business, and what advice could you give to people who aren't used to doing that?
Yeah, I think on the whole, we've just deployed a bit of cadence, and we started from the board down. So very early as things were moving, we put in an 8 a.m. call with the board every day of the week, and particularly important at the beginning as things were moving so quickly. And we've encouraged all of our teams to do the same thing. So, and some of them are now doing cadence in the morning, cadence in the evening, making sure everybody's well, making sure people are getting stuff done, may be making sure people aren't working every hour that they can find to fill. Because I think it's really important to have some distinction between your work day, your evening, your work day and the weekends and the Easter holidays that are coming up, because I think otherwise people will get A, stale, and B, cause themselves some damage, for want of a better word. So we've been encouraging lots of communication, lots of talking, lots of making sure people know what they need to do and getting the support that they need to do to execute. Yeah, keep communicating. It's kind of the only way, isn't it? It's simple advice, but it is the only way.
Yeah, it is. And my last question for you, Andy, from a sort of, we talked about the first wave of technology, everyone working from home, but obviously working from home isn't just buying a laptop and just going home, is it? So what sort of stuff does even if it's just the public sector, what sort of stuff are you seeing that now they say the second wave is coming in, they're having to consider, whether it's security or infrastructure or headsets or whatever